Once again, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. As always, I am Zak, the corruption detector, and this is another edition of Red Pill News. Joining me once again live in the studio is my good friend and financial advisor, Bob the Man Kudla. Bob, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I like the moniker.
All right. So Bob, what's going on, man? How are you today?
I'm doing good. I mean, we're now, a lot of cross currents are hitting at one time here. You have a lot of instability in China. You have a lot of instability in, I would say, in the chaos part of the United States. Most of the normal United States is doing just fine. And then now you have some economic crosswinds coming because of what the Fed just announced at their Jackson Hole summit. And right. Jackson Hole is really interesting because they kind of set the longer term stage for what they're thinking versus the monthly Fed minutes that they produce at their meetings every month. So, but it's big news. It's not good news for people, but it's big news.
All right. Well, before we get into the deep dive, why don't you make sure that everybody knows who Trade Genius is, what do you guys do, and then we can get into it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for that. So Trade Genius, we created, we think, the premier trading software service out there. What we do is we create an algorithm called the profit ribbon system that looks at buying pressure and selling pressure. And so it puts people in positions to buy the stocks at the right time, get out of those trades at the right time, and then rinse and repeat. And we do that with an algorithm that we allow you to use as part of the service, so you can trade things that we don't trade. We teach you how to use it so that you can be effective at it. And in addition to that, we have chat rooms running 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can join if you want to trade futures. You can join if you want to trade stocks. And we also have rooms for trading cryptocurrency and also binary options, which is a really cool way for people who have small accounts to learn how to trade and learn how to basically lift your portfolio up fairly quickly. And then, in addition to that, we provide trade signals every day too, so that you can see how these things work, see what we're trading. And it's a very effective program. And then Red, like I always do for your listeners, we provided discounts for bundles that we created, 65% off, 6 different bundles. But if you want to just pick and choose what you want to buy, you can go ahead and use promo code SUMMER and get 45% off retail. The bundles are already pre-discounted. So just go to tradelikeagenius.com and check us out. You can call us, you can chat with us, email with us. And the only caveat is that we cut these specials off on the evening of the 29th, which is Saturday. So please take advantage of it. You'll love the pricing. It's a really good return on your investment and how to trade more effectively over time.
All right. Thanks, Bob. And of course, that information is always in the pinned comment in the description below. So clearly, in some key areas, the world is on fire still to this day. We've got some major issues with China right now. They are in a world of hurt because of the problems they're having with flooding in the Three Gorges Dam. It's put them in a position where they're not able to produce the food that's required to feed their own people. And we were talking before the show, that is starting to spill out and create issues in other countries. What's going on in Argentina?
Yeah, so it's really interesting is Argentina is a failed state, as you know. They keep getting loans from banks and they keep defaulting on those loans, and their currency is a mess, but they're agriculturally extremely wealthy. It's just that it's an incredibly mismanaged country. If you want to see what 50 years of Democrat total rule looks like, check out Argentina. And a really wealthy country that's being destroyed. It's only 10 years ahead of Venezuela in terms of where they're heading unless they turn around. But because they can grow a lot of their own food domestically, food prices are relatively stable for their citizens. But China now is running a huge deficit. So they've been scouring the world looking for food, and they're like the Borg. You have Australia, you have New Zealand, you have Argentina, Brazil, United States, Canada, those are the places that they can easily get high quality grains and meat products. As you know, they bought Smithfield Foods, and they've been shipping out whole hogs now for a number of years. We had a couple pork price spikes in the U.S. because of it, but in Argentina, they're very sensitive to higher food prices, and they've been rioting in the streets now because the government's making an official policy to sell and export their agricultural production directly to China, meaning like from the farmers to China, bypass Buenos Aires, go. And the people are like, they're not stupid. They know what that means. We're going to be starving, or we're going to have to lower our standard of living so that the Chinese can get more food. It's bad timing and bad optics for the Chinese right now, although they're not doing anything necessarily illegal. It's just that you get to a point where there's not enough food or affordable food. Your domestic population probably wants to have a say in it. So it's really more of an Argentinian problem, but the Chinese are getting a black eye. They're buying records amount of soybeans in the United States too. That's okay now because we have, for the moment, a surplus. The Russians stopped exporting their grains because they're not stupid either. They know that they've had a couple years of bumper harvest, and now they're going to probably go into a couple years of deficit. So food's going to be a big issue, Zach, and it's something nobody's talking about, at least from a macro standpoint. And the Arab Spring came from misguided Fed policies that turned into food riots in the Middle East. Well, I think part 2 is coming up here as the solar minimum keeps squeezing, grain production. United States is going to have an issue this year, and so is Canada. And you can look at Australia. Australia's in deep freeze right now. So it's really going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. But the Fed can't print food. And if you notice, they've been always been whispering in our ear, we need Beyond Meat because, it's healthy for climate change. The reason why they're giving all that stuff is because they know food shortages are coming. So North Korea took all their dogs from people because they're eating it.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
China is telling people that they should be careful with their food. But if that dam goes, Zach, all bets are off.
What is the situation with that Three Gorges Dam? Somebody sent me something on Twitter the other day that said that it looked like the water level was like to the top of the dam, like it was filling over the very top lip.
Yeah, it's not doing that yet, but I think it's within like 10 meters of the top. It's beyond the ability for long-term viability for the dam. They've been running that thing flat out, total open, and it's still rising. We're getting these series of monsoonal flows from basically central Japan all the way into northern India, and it's just not stopping. These storms should have stopped 6 weeks ago, but the storms keep setting up, and it's in the headwaters of the Yangtze River, and so it just keeps dumping into that basin. And at some point, that dam was not designed where it should have been designed. It's basically, usually you put dams where you have really hard rock, and the dam is concave like this. So when the water's pressing on it, it presses on into the rocks. This dam is flat across, if you noticed it, and it's not into really hard rock. So at some point, it's going to get undermined. And if this thing goes, 40 million are directly impacted, 400 million are indirectly impacted, and the rest of the world will have to, unless they're going to let the Chinese starve, they're going to be importing food into that country for those people over a year. Their ag will be, their topsoil is going to be washed away. So it's a potential huge issue. I don't know if the dam breaks. I pray that it does not. As much as I hate the Chinese communists, I don't hate the Chinese people, and I'd hate to see that death on. This is biblical proportions kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When that dam was built, it changed the gravitational and the spin of the Earth. That's
really?
How much. Yeah, that's how much they modified the crust of the Earth. So if that thing goes, obviously we can't notice it, but the scientists noted it.
Sure.
So yeah, so that's a big deal, and people don't realize too. So that's that's like the rice belt down there, all that stuff. That's the corn belt, but in the wheat belt, a monsoon or typhoon just went into northeast China, so Chinese can't get a break, and it's snowing in the northwest of Beijing in August. So even the Chinese people are saying this is not good omens.
No. And at the same time, they are unrelenting in their aggressive practices with other countries in other ways. I mean, they just popped off like 4 missiles in the South China Sea. I mean, that's not a real good way to sweet talk us, considering the fact that they're in this position. I mean, you would think that they would be intelligent enough to understand that if something goes wrong, they're going to need to rely on the kindness of virtually every other country in the world. And, what do you think is going on with their aggressive stance in the South China Sea?
Yeah, first of all, I want to correct you. In the book called Tyrants 101, they don't know the word please. So they think this works for my own country, so therefore it must work everywhere. Yeah. But no, seriously, Xi, he controls a faction. People think it's unconditional support for him. It's just like a kingdom. There are barons that placed him into power, and there are barons who don't support him. And they have independent power bases. Like, you're not going to take one of those he can't just take those Politburo guys and say, I'm arresting you all, right? Their militias, their support units will come and they'll have a civil war. So Xi's losing support because, behind the scenes in the U.S., unbeknownst to us, these sanctions that we put on and these things that we do are selective. We're putting pressure on the right people to force a change within China. Oh. Just like how the Chinese are screwing with us with the virus and with the propaganda, we're doing the same thing. This is an information war being fought. Well, it's having an effect in China, and Xi's under pressure. So in order for him to shore up his support with his barons is that they're nationalists. Xi is a nationalist. The faction that doesn't support him are less so. And so he's like, I got to keep my people happy. So I'm going to saber rattle with India. I'm going to screw around with the Philippines. I'm going to try to intimidate Taiwan. I'm going to bark at Japan. And all it's doing is strategically just people are like repositioning. Oh, and Australia, they're trying to intimidate Australia. Mm-hmm. And so that's all by design for public consumption for the people that are trying to. There's people literally in China that are leaders thinking that China has a shot to being the undisputed world leader. One of the things that you learn in World Empires 101 is if you can't feed your people and you can't energize your people, you don't remain an empire. Mm-hmm. And China imports food and energy. So they have to secure those resources or they're done, and they're losing control over that. And Africa is where they've been playing, but they're getting pushback now from Russia. Obviously, we're screwing around with them, and the Europeans consider Africa their home turf. So it's really going to be interesting for people who think China is the 21st century leader. Rethink it. Either the United States remains so, or the world descends into a bunch of competing fiefdoms with nobody really in charge.
Well, I have to agree with you there. Have you heard that Xi is looking to revive the moniker of chairman? He's now, I don't know if it's going to happen, but it looks like he's going to start calling himself Chairman Xi, like Chairman Mao. And I wonder if that's a bid to put more pressure on those other factions within China to try to grab total control of the country. And if we, the United States, are pushing on all of these other opposing forces that are, potentially going to unseat him, maybe it will be enough to, kind of upset the balance of power and somebody else will come in and then we won't have to deal with it anymore. But, I mean, to your point about the United States being the global leader for the 21st century, we have to, but despite whatever we might think, there are factions here in the United States who also don't want to see that happen. Obviously, there is some major stuff happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin, last place that I expected to see rioting and this unrest that we've had for the last 4 nights. But also, this is a self-defeating move in my estimation, but the NBA is essentially canceling itself, or rather LeBron James is canceling his game. And then also the LA Clippers, they've said that they're going to, I guess, go on strike, and there won't be a season anymore. This is coming at a bad time, I would think, not only for the owners, but also the players. I mean, they already had to take a bunch of time off. I think the owners have lost just untold sums of money because they haven't been able to have these games played. And if they're not even able to play games on television, it might think it's going to put a real financial stress on a lot of people who are sports teams owners.
Yeah, I mean, look at the NBA. It's interesting, because they have guaranteed contracts. These people, these guys are getting paid. It's just like just like the government says we need to lock down. Well, you're getting paid, so yeah, no skin off your nose short term. I don't see how the NBA survives it. Well, I don't see how any of the sports teams survive it. These big contracts are probably the last big contracts any sports team players are going to see in their lifetime, because when they renegotiate these TV contracts, the audiences are going to be so low that the people aren't going to pay, and they're certainly not going to pay for a bump in their ESPN charge on their cable bill because some guy wants to make $700 million guaranteed, and then come back around and lecture us. So yeah, the NBA is irrelevant to me. When somebody said that, I just said, who? Like, it's not even a fun sport to watch anymore. There's no good personalities, and they're angry rich people. So I don't worry about it. It's funny. Somebody said, well, look at hockey. A lot of these hockey guys come from socialist countries, and they know full well that you don't want this. So they're just like, they're just ignoring it. Yeah. But look, none of them can afford it. I think this lockdown, and look at me, I mean, I'm a sports nut, and I re-engineered my whole life for time. I don't even watch TV anymore at all. Other than watching the Republican National Convention, which was awesome, by the way. Yes, it was. I couldn't even watch. I watched the Democrats for like 15 minutes, and I mean, I had to get a gag bag out. And
me too.
I didn't know how good the Republican convention was going to be. I just thought, but man, watching these people, I just sit there. I looked at my wife. I'm like, these are ordinary people talking to millions of people, and they're like smooth, and these are just normal people. But that's all I watch.
I cried at so many points during the RNC. It was incredible.
But my point is, a lot of people have just abandoned TV, and look, I have NFL, total access, whatever. I can watch all the games. I'm canceling it. Yeah. I don't care what. I'm just canceling. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to support your political stance. I work, you work. I don't want to hear about your politics while you work. You don't want to hear mine. I don't want to hear yours. So, yeah, and I think that's multiplied up by billions. I mean, my daughter, she doesn't even know what's going on in the world, in a sense that she's just living her life as a kid. She's an adult, but all this stuff is just like, they're not angsting over it. She's more mad that she can't go to school and she now has to get a new job because her company's not going to hire her back. But, she's not engaged in all this rhetoric. Yeah. And these kids don't watch TV. I mean, they're Netflix, they're Hulu kids, so it's really going to be interesting, and they don't want to pay for anything. So you're gonna have a generation come up and say, I'm not paying $100 a month to watch cable. I'll just catch the glimpses. So yeah, I think their timing is absolutely wrong. They could have done this so many different ways. So especially LeBron, he holds a stance, but he kowtows to the Chinese. It's like these people don't realize, like, the internet remembers everything. Yeah. They act like there's no past.
Yeah, LeBron is an incredible hypocrite in my estimation. The way that he will kowtow to the Chinese Communist Party and support their efforts when they are some of the worst offenders for human rights abuses in the history of this world. But the good thing about what's happening, the unrest that we're seeing in the world, and even with these NBA players striking as a result of what's happening between cops and robbers, it has raised the barometer for the United States citizens. We now have just as much worry in our minds and in our hearts about all of this unrest, this violent crime, as people do about CV-19. It looks like it's starting to eclipse it. And this is something we've talked about before. President Trump, he's not a dictator. He's, running the federal government, and these governors and mayors in the states, they are the ones who are supposed to protect their citizens. They've chosen not to, and as a result, it is now a key issue for many, many voters, more than it was in the last election. Did you happen to catch any of the C-SPAN coverage where people would call in afterwards? It was like 99% positive for President Trump, and it was directly in result to whatever these governors and these mayors were doing to not protect their citizens. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, my wife watched it. I was just I just heard the comments. I watched C-SPAN end to end, and because I didn't want to be interrupted by somebody else's opinion of what I should know, and yeah, I caught that too. I'm always a little reluctant on that stuff, but C-SPAN tries to play it down the middle, and I think they could smell the BS. But these are people speaking from the heart. Mm-hmm. I mean, it got to a point where people were commenting on it in Twitter, that wow, this is amazing. And I think a lot of people were probably taken aback. You watched the other NFL guy, the two NFL guys from last night, the two Black Americans that spoke. And then the other night, people saying, wow, Trump has more support broadly than people have realized.
Yep.
And I think, and people basically have seen his heart a little bit about some of the things he does that never gets out there that these people have spoken to, in terms of what he does. And then I know, because I know people who know Trump personally, say he's genuinely a nice guy. And he when he engages you fully. It might only be for 10 or 15 seconds, but he's not distracted. There's no platitudes. He's talking to you, and he's absorbing what you're saying, even though there's 50 people around him vying for his attention. And he's generally funny, And so I think the more people get to know real him. And I think Herschel Walker was devastatingly good. I don't think people realize he knew him for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. So,
I certainly didn't know that he babysat the kids.
No, and you saw him at the fight. Yeah, Don Jr. in Herschel Walker's lap at a fight. I'm saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to raise a racist child. So it's like, it's absolutely crazy. But what's really interesting is that the Democrats are promising us that our life's going to suck. I mean, talk about a marketing campaign. I'm going to open the borders, and I'm going to let all these poor people come into the country and take your jobs. Oh, and you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to give them stuff for free that you pay for.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what else I'm going to do is that if they decide to riot in your jurisdiction, I'm not going to arrest them. And guess what else I'm going to do? If you defend yourself, I'm going to arrest you.
Yeah.
And so, and by the way, I'm going to force them into your neighborhoods. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the cost of living for you, because I'm going to raise energy prices so that you don't use it anymore. Mm-hmm. So vote for me. I mean, it's just amazing. I just sit there going, okay, I'm a marketing major. Insult your base,
Right? I have no idea where their heads are at. It's almost like they've backed themselves into a corner, and the only place they can go is just, further into that corner. But they have zero, nobody is telling them what's happening in the real world. I mean, all they have are advisors around them, people who are SJWs, people who are only going to Twitter to see that, tiny fraction of the, far left And then they're taking that information and giving it to the Dems and saying, this is what we have to do to combat Trump. But I believe that this in November is going to be probably the largest landslide victory for a president in recent memory. I mean, I would not be surprised if President Trump got upwards of 60% of the vote, maybe even close to 70. It's I can't see, I don't know a single person who is excited about what the Democrats are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to keep my enthusiasm in check, because I just don't trust the Democrat. I live in California, where I watched them pad the vote in Orange County. So I just hope Trump's on top of that. Then I think we're good. And he's not stupid, so I'm sure he's formulating a plan. I mean, in 4 weeks, if you put that RNC convention together, that should win an Oscar award.
Right.
I'm sure waiting a year in advance on how to deal with these elections, I'm sure he has a plan for that. Yeah, I saw polling data that from this guy who 25 out of the last 27 elections that he prognosticated on, and he puts his prognostications ahead 6 months. He thinks Trump's 317 or 370 or 317 electoral college votes. Mm-hmm. So, I want to be hopeful. I just don't know how, I mean, they basically would, and I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but what's amazing to me is that 2016 was all about the Hispanic, remember? Mm-hmm. You don't hear anything.
No.
They doubled down on this urban vote, thinking the urban vote is what's going to push them over the top. Maybe because they think, well, California, New Mexico, Colorado, high Hispanic vote, they're going to vote for me anyway. Mm-hmm. We're going to go after the urban vote in these key states. But
that's it.
A lot of those people, you saw the defund the police polling for African Americans. Mm-hmm. They're like, 80% say we want to keep it the same. 18% we want more.
Yeah, exactly.
So like 3% of the population wants to get rid of the police, and that's what makes the news.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I think that they've done themselves in urban areas. I think that and that's why I'm so optimistic about how good this is going to be here in November for President Trump, because what they've done is they've targeted the people who live in these urban areas. They have made them the victims of all of these violent crimes, the rioting, the burning of businesses. It has affected only these people in urban areas. I mean, you got in Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot, she put a ban on protesting in her own neighborhood. Like, come on, like the incredible hypocrisy here. And I think that the majority of the people out there, they see it. The murder rate in Chicago has increased. Every single place where they have defunded the police or they've, rolled back the programs, murder rates are up. You've got violent crime, that incident in Kenosha the other night. The reporting initially was very sketchy and we didn't know what was going on. But the kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, 17-year-old, it's a tragedy. It's too bad that, he had to take a couple of people's lives and, had to use this weapon at all. But those were some bad dudes, okay? This is the demographic for people that are supporting the Democrat agenda. It is people with, major felony records, people who are sex offenders, people who are violent in a number of ways, and that's why you've got this crazy group out there in all these major metropolitan areas, because it's small, but it's vicious, okay? And they are willing to travel. They will go anywhere. But every place they go to, they destroy. And the residents of those cities, they look around and they say, how could I possibly want this for my future?
Yeah, you took the word right out of my mouth, and it is a small group. It just seems like it's everybody because, you get these tight lenses on what's going on. But I would say probably in any one of these protests, there's less than 200 or 300 people.
Yeah.
But they overwhelm the police, and they know the officials are going to pull the police back because the police are on defense anyway, because they just had a police shooting. So it's like a model. Well, I don't know if you saw this morning, probably not because you're getting ready for the show, but the marshals are now in Kenosha, and they're rolling up on some of these infrastructure people,
Nice.
The supply chain people behind these rioters. They call themselves, the food kitchen for the riot, whatever. Well, they just took the whole van and the people and gone. And, you know, these are people probably supplying the Molotov cocktails, the bricks, the whatever. And, you know, they've been following them because they just like the marshals were in town for what, 6 hours? And they already rolled up on some of these people. So good. I just think if you just take away their legs, you know, it goes away. And, you know, you hear some of these, especially the African-American women saying like, where am I going to go? I can't drive. You destroyed. And it's not, I think, you know, the block youths are like, hey, let's go ahead and we'll do a little bit of looting. But these people come in and they're throwing fire bombs. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And, you know, you can, you know, deal with some looting here, but these guys are doing I mean, that downtown strip of Kenosha, 2 or 3 blocks, and every building's burned out. Mm-hmm. You know, and and it's white people.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Malcolm X said the worst person in America is a progressive white person.
Yes, he certainly did. I think that's an excellent point on which to end it, because you could not be more right, Bob. You know, unfortunately, that is the face of you know, the Democratic Party, and they've driven it home for me, for everyone else here in this country. So good luck to the Dems in November. They're certainly going to need it. All right, Bob. Well, thank you once again for joining us. I certainly appreciate it, and I look forward to having you back again in the future.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Zach. Have a good one.
Hey guys, one more thing. I just want to thank everyone for watching today. If you have not subscribed yet, I urge you to please consider subscribing. There will be a couple of videos that pop up if you want to continue to watch. There's also some ways in the description of this video that you can follow me on other platforms. Please consider doing that as well. And if you want to support the program directly, there are means to do that below as well. Thank you all for your support over the last couple of years. Consider liking and sharing this video and help me get the real news to people who don't yet know they've been lied to.